Teacher's Coffee with George Kokolas and Virginia Dooley.
Here we are again, Gina. Welcome to another Teacher's Coffee episode.
Hello, George. Thank you. Here we are again, episode 24. I can't believe it.
Oh, absolutely. What a fascinating season this has been so far.
Super fascinating. And it's gone by so quickly as well.
You know why? Because we travel a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to travel.
Are we traveling again today?
Yeah, we're traveling again.
Okay, where are we going?
We're going to a place that I have been several times quite a while ago, but I still find it exceptional. And once I found out that our guest lives in this place, I was actually double enthusiastic in a way. So today, we are very happy to have with us Jack Dougall from Gran Canaria, right? Gran Canaria Islands. Welcome,
Absolutely.
Jack.
Good morning.
Good morning. We were chatting just before we pressed the recording button. I guess you have more or less the same temperature all over the year. That's what is really exceptional about Canary Islands, right?
Absolutely. They say the best climate in the world. And I think I agree. Although you have caught it on a bad day. Today is stormy and cloudy, but that's almost novel. That's the 1 or 2 days a year you get that. So everyone quite enjoys it. But fantastic climate. Thoroughly recommend it.
So you still get something like around every day, 23 to 25 degrees Celsius. Is that right?
Pretty much. The summers aren't too hot and the winters aren't too cold. It's absolutely fantastic.
Wonderful. Well, I think that starting with this introduction regarding where you live exactly, you should also give us an introduction about yourself. And I think there is a very interesting story involving professional surfing, travel writing, that led you to become an English teacher. And I dare say this sounds very intriguing. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your life and how did you end up as a teacher in Canary Islands?
Okay, yeah, I will try and take you through it. You've perhaps oversold it as more exciting than it is, but we'll see. I come from a family of teachers, and quite a few people would say that, but I really do. My mum is a teacher. My dad is a teacher. My granddad, my grandma, my cousins are teachers. My aunts are teachers. My other aunt is a professor at Trinity. I really do come from a family of teachers. So I think I was destined to become a teacher, despite most of them saying, don't become a teacher. I think I was probably destined for that. And it's a vocation. It wasn't my original aim, as you pointed out in the brief. My first aim was to be a professional surfer, an obsession of mine since a young age. And I managed it with some success. I mean, I traveled the world. I had a great time doing it, but I probably broke a few records for the lowest scores in competitions ever. So I don't know whether it was quite as an achievement as it sounds. But because of that, because of, trying to make ends meet, and I was never getting paid very much for doing it, I was forced to find other ways to make money. And because I was traveling and going to exciting places and having a great time, it fit in nicely with travel writing. I'd always been interested in writing and things like that. So yeah, so I was surfing and travel writing. I'm from the UK originally. And when I could no longer blag a career out of that, when they finally saw through the fact that I wasn't very talented, then it was time to get a more serious job. And I wanted one where I could surf at the same time. And, the obvious step was teaching, especially with the teacher holidays. But the minute I was in it, it was just a vocation. I just love it. And I've been obsessed with it. I think that's probably my nature. I'm fairly obsessive about the things I do. Or passionate's a better word, isn't it?
Exactly.
I've been passionate about it since I've been doing it. And I worked for the first 5 years. I did my PGCE training at Exeter University in the southwest of England. I worked for about 5 years at a school there. And then 10 years ago now, if that's right, 12 years ago, I chased the warmer weather that we spoke about at the start, and warmer water and good waves. And I've come to Gran Canaria, and I've been here happily working at an international school. A caveat, I'm not actually an English teacher per se. I do teach some English at the school, but it's an international school where the children are mainly Spanish. I'm teaching in English, and I'm the humanities and business studies teacher. And lo and behold, my partner is a teacher as well. So yeah, the conversations in our family get-togethers are fascinating. They are all teaching things. And I've got a 4-year-old boy. My partner's Spanish, so we've got a mix of language, Spanish and English, and Spanglish probably most of the time. So yeah, that's led me to where I am now.
Excellent.
Nice.
George didn't oversell it. Sounds fun, mixing passion of surfing, traveling, but teaching at the same time, because you came from the family, so of course you ought to be a teacher. Apart from that, though, I hear you're involved in a peer tutoring project, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's a big story behind that if you want me to dive into it.
Yes, tell us a bit more about it and what you aim to achieve, or how the project was created, with what goals, let's say. Okay, well, as I said, passionate again is the word, so feel free to stop me when I get very boring. But I will go back to the start. I think this comes from my family being teachers, that I have always felt, and I even did feel when I was at school, that I have overachieved with my academic results. I did okay at school, but I think I probably overachieved as a result of the help from my parents, both being teachers. When homework was set, you know, my parents took a part. They didn't do it for me, but they certainly were actively interested in when and sitting down. And if I had a question, I had someone to ask. And then as I've gone on to be a teacher, and particularly here in Spain, where, as I said, the medium is in English, but the parents are mainly Spanish and don't speak English, that I've suddenly become aware that isn't something that everyone has. I was very privileged to have that. That when I got home, there was someone always there to help me. So I researched into that. I mean, my partner as well. She laughed. She said the idea that she would go home and get help from her parents when she was at school, that just didn't happen. So I felt very spoiled and very privileged by that. And then in my educational research, being a teacher, then I came across, I can't remember how many years ago, but Bloom's 2 sigma theory problem, 2 sigma problem. I don't know whether you've come across that at all.
No, it doesn't ring a bell to me.
Okay. Well, Bloom is well known.
Bloom's taxonomy, you mean? The Bloom's taxonomy.
Exactly. Well, there's Bloom's taxonomy.
Yeah.
Well, that's his most famous thing. Absolutely. But I actually am interested in another thing that he did in, I think it was about 1984. He did some research, and he called it the Bloom's 2 sigma problem. And I just have found that fascinating, and I fully believe in it. So he did some research, and essentially you can read about it online, but he discovered that everyone massively improves if they have one-to-one tutoring. It makes a 2 standard deviation difference to people's education. So it takes good people and makes them excellent. It takes average people and makes them good, which is probably where I would fall into. I'd probably be average and made good. And it takes weaker children and it makes them good, average or even good. So that to me just seems amazing when we're in this fight. But if it's called the problem, the interesting part is it's called a problem, is because it can't happen. With 8 billion people on the world, we can't have one-to-one tutoring in the current educational format. So yeah, he discovered this in 1984 and he said, it's very nice, but we can't really do it. Well, people with money do it, I think. And I think that's been shown by the growth of tutoring industry. And it's always been around that if you've got a lot of money, you can pay to come outside of school and then have one-to-one help. I got it not through money, but I got it through luck, that when I came home, my parents could help me. Other people can pay for it. But there are certain people in the world who just haven't got that option. It just isn't there. So I wanted to set about doing something about that, but it seemed a big problem to solve. I mean, I say solving it originally. I didn't sit down and hear about that and say, let's solve it. In fact, the story's slightly longer in that COVID came about during the problems of COVID. Education shut down, and Britain and America did their research on how do we solve the problem of all this missed education of all of the children. And they came back to this, I believe, 2 sigma problem. And they said, well, all this research says the best way to catch up children
from missed education is giving them one-to-one tutoring or small group if possible. So they funded it. So in Britain, they put the national tutoring program, put over $1 billion into that with mixed success because of the way it was funded, but they put $1 billion into that. The Americans did something similar with even more money being put into it. They did loads of research and they said, yeah, this is a solution and we can do it online. We can make it affordable because tutoring doesn't have to be face-to-face with the growth of what we're doing now, like through Zoom. You can have a cheaper solution to this. But it was great if you're in Britain. It was great if you're in America, but at an international school in Spain, there has been absolutely nothing. And in many schools around the world, they just seem to have forgotten that children missed virtually 2 years of education. And they're crucial years. And as a teacher, we're still feeling that. You can't just miss year 7 maths for a year and do it online when teachers weren't really ready for it. And Zoom, okay, we did lessons, but 28 on a Zoom lesson, they weren't great lessons. So you can't really just miss all that education and not have a catch-up system. So that was it. I was like, well, we need a solution for this. And it actually corresponded with me because during the time of COVID, in fact, too many years of surfing, I damaged my neck. It meant I couldn't surf. And then I had this void in my life. I'm actually able to, they fixed it now, they put metal in. But I had this space in my life where I could fill it with something. So I just decided to throw myself into this problem. And I created this social enterprise, which is peer tutoring, with the aim of trying to get a very noble aim, very grand aim, but trying to get every child access to some form of tutor, one-to-one tutor outside of the school day. And to be clear, it's very much not to replace education. Education has to come first. Teachers do the work. I'm not here saying tutoring is better. It's not. Teaching and schools are fantastic. But the benefits you can get of getting some children some help outside of the school day just is phenomenal. So I set up this website mainly using peer tutoring. We have the older ones. We've got these fantastic children who work at the schools, at the schools where I'm at, 18-year-olds who are multilingual, who are bright, intelligent, good at explaining, have all the skills of education, want to help, and haven't found a way to do that with things like Duke of Edinburgh or CAS in the IB program. They have to help. They have to provide an authentic need. Sorry, not provide an authentic need, but they have to help someone where there is an authentic need. And what better need was there? So it was seemingly a relatively simple thing. Connect up a website where peer tutors, where the older year group could tutor the younger year groups, and that was it. I needed the passion because, having said all of that, I haven't got a background in tech. I'm not particularly computer savvy to start with. I don't mind them, but I've had to learn, and that's been fantastic. I wanted to do it without charging money. So everything had to be done in my time and was sort of self-funded. So I learned web design, I learned UX, I learned marketing, and all of those different things. And over the course of the 2 years, it's been, it's taking off. It's not going to solve all of the world's problems, but it is making a difference. It started at my school, and lots of children are continuing to receive free one-to-one lessons whenever they want it in the booking system. It expanded into local schools. They're using it, and then international school markets, so schools around the world. And then just recently, over the last 2 months, I've teamed up quite excitingly with a company called World Mobile, and I really like what they're doing because World Mobile have got a noble aim as well. They're saying that one of the big problems around the world is you've got, I think it's 4 billion people unconnected, or 3 billion it might be. 3 billion people don't have internet around the world. Well, as an educator, then that's a huge disadvantage in the modern world, not having a link to the internet. I mean, it's the greatest tool we have, I think, as educators, connection to the internet. So I've teamed up with them anyway. And I said, well, look, if you can get internet to the unconnected, to the children, then I can provide you with 18-year-olds who will tutor those children. And that's what we're doing. So we're piloting it in Zanzibar and Tanzania. They're getting internet to some schools that have recently been connected. And then I've got some volunteers from various schools around the world who are giving one-to-one lessons to the children there. So it's been great. It's nearly killed me along the way, and it's still a lot of work, but it's just about meeting those objectives. There's various other objectives along the way that you can see on the website, but in a nutshell, that's the concept behind it, I'd say.
Jack, I think we haven't oversold you as an educator, because right now, what you have just told us, I think, first of all, I'm keeping the phrase social enterprise, because that's exactly what this is all about. We need to see the big picture here, and we need to realize that that was something absolutely needed in education. I will put it in a more general perspective. Kids, any kids, need help. I mean, you cannot assume as a parent, as an educator, as a teacher, that somebody would be attending school without having this kind of help. And I think it's really important and precious that you realized, and you try to offer that through your social enterprise. Practically, you have answered most of my questions, my next questions regarding the difficulties that you may have faced or the strategies. But I guess that this is the most important currency right now regarding what you are doing, and we wish you all the best for this endeavor, because it's really something that it offers out there, something that now even parents realize how much it is needed. Somehow, maybe even before COVID, they haven't. Educators, parents, they haven't realized that this is actually something simple, but needs to be offered to anybody. It doesn't have to do whether you're a good student, you have the skills or the cognitive abilities. Help is needed to be offered and be there in case needed to any student. Which leads me to my next question, which has to do with within this framework of social enterprise and helping students. How did this work with your son? I mean, from what we have discussed, you have a son who has become bilingual. You are in an international school context. I don't know if you live at home, you have a bilingual environment. Did this situation of yours help you somehow to put your tutoring service in practice, but at the same time, find out about how kids can become bilingual as a teacher? Did you have to experience it from within, I mean, from your real life? And how could this help you as a teacher, maybe?
Well, I don't think I should be a spokesperson for being bilingual. I have to be careful on this one. Our home is probably a mess. I mean, I don't know what the right theory is for language teaching. Our home is a mess of languages. So he's 4 now, and we speak Spanglish at home. I don't know. Yeah, I start speaking in English. He replies in Spanish. Daniela, my partner, is Spanish, but seems to speak more in English to him. I don't know what the rules are or what they're meant to be. And my understanding of language, I learned French at school. My French was okay. I lived in France, and then I came to Spain with virtually no Spanish other than surfing words, and a Michel Thomas CV. I don't know if you remember Michel Thomas, but that was my introduction to Spanish. But you know what? It still sticks with me. The main concept he said that I just love, and it's probably the worst thing I can say on here, but he just used to say, just get it over the net. He used to say, it's like a game of tennis. Get the words over the net and then listen to feedback. And I just love that. And maybe that's totally wrong, and all the French and German teachers out there are going to kill me for this, because I'm not a French and German teacher or anything like that. But I just love that, because I think there's just so... In the English education where we had languages at school, and when I learned language at school, that we learned the tenses and the grammar, and I got a reasonable grade in GCSE, but then I'd go to France and I'd be petrified to say anything in case I used the wrong tense. And I think that's a big flaw, because language is communication, and language is fantastic. It opens up the traveling around the world that I've done and enjoyed surfing. So for me, I kind of advocate against that. Just try. And as a result of that, with a Michel CD and living in Spain, you know, I speak Spanish. It's full of grammatical errors, but I can be understood. I'm hoping that my son Teo is not going to have all my grammar errors, that he'll be picking up off his mother all of the correct Spanish. But again, my advice is probably wrong, but it's just immersion, just throwing yourself. And even when I speak to the parents who come in, you know, how can they improve their English because the children are Spanish and being taught? And they say to me as a humanities teacher, and my first thing is always, well, get the TV on in English. Get practicing. Stop being nervous about things. Have a go, particularly with English, where we get our grammar wrong all the time. Our accents are confusing. I mean, who cares? I think that just isn't an issue. So as I say, probably totally the wrong advice. But that's how I get around it. And my son is probably doing that. We're a mix of Spanish and English and a bit of a mess at home, but bilingual. And shortly he'll be helping me out with my Spanish, I think. So correcting my tenses.
Jack, you're not mistaken at all, and that's the right thing to do. I can send you many papers right now, scientific ones, that they do prove that language learners are inhibited by the fear of mistakes. And as teachers, we need to eliminate this fear. And the only remedy to that is make as many mistakes as you like. And eventually, this is how you rectify your language. This is how you immerse, and eventually you become bilingual. So there is nothing wrong to that. And it only, you know, I don't know why, where did this come from, but somehow we create more guilt in the rest of the negative feelings that exist at school, specifically when you learn a foreign language. Everybody makes mistakes, even, you know, native or non-native speakers. So it's part of the process. Gina?
Absolutely. It's like Spanglish that you said in the beginning, not to feel bad to you, at least, you know, experiment, use some words here and there, get the message across, and then through time, maybe you'll be using less of the language that you're comfortable with and more of the language that you're trying to learn. Okay, so speaking about all of your different passions, let's go to another passion of yours. Generative AI, that is. Actually, I think a lot of people are intrigued by this, especially in education. It's still new, although it's been around for about a year now. A lot of people don't know how it can change our routines or daily lives, if it can be helpful, if it's something we should be scared of. But you've published some articles about this subject. So could you tell us what your views of AI are and how, if you think it can enhance the learning experience for students and help educators, of course?
Yep. Okay. Well, we're on to the word passion again. You're right. This is, it's been part of running Ecmtutors. Of course, I've had to stay at the forefront of things. And therefore, I've been reading about it 24/7 and writing about it and thoroughly enjoying it. It's entirely contentious. So what I say now could be wrong by tomorrow. And what I say, even if it isn't wrong, there'll be someone who absolutely hates me for saying some of the things. So all of the excuses come in advance. I'll give you my opinions on it and then feel free to argue afterwards. One of the big things I've said about generative AI from the start, I think there needs to be a differentiation in using generative AI. So by generative AI, we're talking things like ChatGPT being the big one now. Claude's come along and a Gemini. But I think there needs to be more nuance in the conversation. That teachers are saying, and you know, I work in a school, so I hear it. There's a lot of cynicism out there. There's some people who are passionate, but there's also a lot of cynicism. And people are saying, oh, he cheated. He used generative AI. Well, I want that conversation to be moved to how. How did they use generative AI? Which is a relatively, no one else is really saying this. And I've been writing a lot to try and bring it in. But generative AI can be put to many uses, but I think there's two big distinctions that need to be made. One is, are you using it to improve your efficiency, or are you using it to make you more effective? Now, they're business terms, but they're important business terms. So if we look at those terms and we say, well, this boy, he's cheated. A conversation I hear all the time at school and all the time in online forums. If you follow the Facebook groups, they're cheating. They're using ChatGPT. I scream at the screen. Well, for what? So if you say, well, they used it because I set them a homework task and they just got generative AI, ChatGPT, to do all of their homework for them. Well, in that case, they've used it to increase their efficiency. The child has used it because they didn't want to spend 30 minutes doing the homework. They wanted to do it in 1 minute. So that is using it for efficiency. The other thing is, well, maybe they used it because it can be used for learning. Maybe they used generative AI, which is how I use it most of the time, to improve their understanding of the topic that you set them for your homework. And if they have used it to improve their understanding, well, surely that isn't cheating. Surely as an educator, that's desirable. So I think that question needs to go out there as well. What are they using it for? To increase their efficiency or to become more effective, to more effectively understand that something? So if we think along those two terms, I think educators have a duty, in fact, to teach both of those things, both efficiency and effective. Whether you like it or not, it's not going anywhere. It's thoroughly embedded into the world. I mean, AI has been, and generative AI, as you said, in the last year has just exploded onto the scene. I think the IMF have said that they reckon in the developed world, 60% of jobs will be impacted by generative AI, if they aren't already. I mean, many are. And businesses, whether we like it or not, they want efficiency. They strive for efficiency. They need a greater output by efficiency, greater output in a short period of time. So they want children, the future workers, to be efficient, and they're going to use it. So I think we as educators have a duty to teach children how to be efficient, ethically, but we have a duty how to be efficient. Now, secondly, as an educator, we want to improve the world. We want them to be more effective. We want children to understand more and solve more of the world's problems, be it cancer or global warming. And AI has a role in that. It makes learning more effective, that if you're using it to be effective, to increase your understanding, then you're going to use AI to increase your HI, as they're calling it, your human intelligence. So educators, I thoroughly believe, have a job to understand this process and educate children how to use it. Now, there are limitations, absolutely, and there are disadvantages. And if I just quickly go through some of the things that they talk about, some of the problems, and this is where I'm going to get myself in hot water, but I'm just going to try and throw out some arguments against their problems. So the main one we go back to is the cheating issue. Now, in my story, probably someone was listening and saying, yeah, but they are cheating. If you set your homework and then they just go away, type it into ChatGPT, it can write their homework for them and they do it in 5 minutes, then they learn nothing from that. Well, absolutely right. That is cheating. But I would argue the problem is not with the child. The problem is the homework that you've set there. That why are you setting them something where they're feeling the need to cheat? That would make sense if the homework is summative, we'd call it in education. If you're trying to summarize what they know and you're putting a grade against their homework, well, it probably makes sense to try and do it quickly. I don't have that problem, and I don't want to say I haven't got problems with my lessons, because of course I have, but I don't have that problem with my homework because I make it very clear for all the children that I teach that the purpose of all of my homework is formative, that I am setting them homework to help them learn. I'm lucky that I work in the system of the IGCSEs and the A-level system and the IB system, where all summative assessment, the one that gives them the grade and tells them whether they're good, bad, middle, or average, or whatever, all of that is done by an external party. That's done by an external exam where they're sat in exam conditions. So what I love about teaching, and it's always been what I love about the international system, the British system, is I am not an enemy to the children. I am an ally to the children. And therefore, when I'm setting homework, I say, well, yeah, you can put it into ChatGPT and do it in 5 minutes, and you can make me think you've written it, but what would you gain? I'm not grading you. All you do is come across an exam a year from now where you haven't learned anything. So I want to argue that, yes, it can be used for cheating, but you're probably setting the wrong homework. Now, against that, people say, yes, but you have to do some summative assessment, because where do you get it from? Well, I like to leave it to the external parties, as I said, the IGCSEs. Then it gets us into the issue of high stakes exams, and some people don't like high stakes exams. They're stressful and all of those. Yeah, I agree. But I do think they're fair. They may not be representative, another one of my differentiations of words, but many people argue against them, like doing high stakes, end of 2 years, do an A-level exam. And people say that's terrible because some people don't work under exam conditions. True. That means that their output of some children are not, it's not going to be representative. Some children are not going to do as well in that exam as others who do well in exams. It is not representative, but it is fair. Or as fair can be, given all of the details of homework and all the rest of those things. And of those two options, which would I rather? Which do I think? Well, I think I'd rather fair than representative. And the argument of doing it outside of school conditions, that's my bugbear. Well, you should do it outside of, you can do summative assessments if they take it home like coursework. That's never been fair. And I'm living proof of that, as I said before, that when I took my homework home, my parents sat down with me and helped me with that homework. So that has never been a fair system in private schools around the world. Some people are paying for tutors and paying a lot of money for tutors. So anything going home is not fair. The fairest system, sadly, I agree it's not representative, but is to sit down in a high stakes exam without a computer, without ChatGPT, and what's more, it makes the teacher the ally, which is what I want to be. I'm not your enemy. I don't want to be your enemy. I want to be your helper to help you learn the process to conquer those exams. So that was controversy number one. They say it's cheating. The second issue, the big one out there that to deal with is that it's got ethical issues, that it comes up with bias, that when you put things into it, it's going to come up with racist comments or someone said it talks as if it's a 40-year-old white man like me, in fact. And that's a fair point. Absolutely. There are those disadvantages, but AI only reflects the biases that are in the world. It doesn't create the bias. It reflects the bias that already exists out there. And that's the job of schools. That's what we've always done, is to expose that bias. That as a humanities teacher, you know, from teaching history or geography, the first thing you do with children is you have a source and you say, well, do we think this is a fair source? Do we think this is true, or has it got bias in? And AI won't be. I don't believe that generative AI is going to be replacing schools. Schools always have to come first. This can be, in fact, the solution to Bloom's 2 sigma problem. That when you combine it with good education, the skills we already have of critical thinking, that teachers have always taught, they may need to teach them a little bit more, but saying be cynical. If something shows up on a website, don't believe. If something shows up in a newspaper, well, what's the political leanings of that newspaper? So to suddenly say, well, let's not use generative AI because it's got bias in it. Well, most things we come across have bias. The final one. Yeah. As I say, please stop me if I'm waffling.
No, Jack, I think you covered the whole issue, and I think we need to change the narrative in education regarding AI. We need to embrace it, and I think you really nailed it when you said that this is all about not being the enemy, but someone who would actually help and improve education and the skills of our students. So thank you for covering this so thoroughly. And
what was the third, the last one? There was one more disadvantage.
Hey, look, I've caught you.
Yeah.
Very quickly. The other one is privacy. I mean, that's the big one of how you fit it in privacy with schools. And it is a problem. Yeah, because what data do they store? But I don't think there's as much, we don't have much concern about the privacy for cookies on websites, which really is tracking data. I know that now from running a website. Wow, the data that's stored there, that children aimlessly, blindly click accept on a cookie, and a teacher at the same time as saying, well, I'm not happy about AI because it's stealing data, and then they're clicking accept. So, you know, it is a problem. It is something we need to be aware of. But in all of the cynicism, I'm not against cynicism. These are companies with huge amounts of money growing incredibly quickly. Cynicism is vital. You have to attack these companies. I thoroughly believe that whereas I'm saying, hey, look, let's go against it. If you don't attack them, they've got too much money and too much power, and they'll be doing all sorts of unethical things. So I think the only way you can keep them ethical is if everyone is criticizing. So despite the fact I'm saying, well, these are the criticisms, keep criticizing, keep throwing arguments at them, because we have to keep them in check, because they're big money, and big companies. That was the third.
Okay.
Nice.
Nice. Almost covered my roast question that I was thinking to ask you, but I might just rephrase it a little bit. Maybe we can get some more information out. So how do you encourage the use of AI in your own classrooms then, if you do? And tell us about a time where it was so obvious that someone had used generative AI, and how did you, I mean, you already answered that, you're the ally. So how do you not discourage the use of it, but still penalize, if you want to call it, at the same time, the use of it? Or
I follow.
yeah,
I follow you.
Yeah. Or how do you kind of make the student realize to be more critical about the use of it? I don't know if I explained my question very well.
Yeah, fine.
Okay.
In terms of school, you've got to be careful. So it's optional. In my lessons, I lead with it, but I have consent. I've been with it from the early days. So we keep parents informed of those sorts of things. I don't get them all sat down on a computer very often, particularly not the younger years using it. You can't yet. There's too many unknowns about it. But in homework, I will always put it there as an option because it needs parental consent from 13 to 18 anyway. So listen, I say to the parents on the first time I did it, I said, this is the ChatGPT. Do you want to sit with your children and use it? These are the benefits. And if you don't, here's the alternative tasks. You don't have to, not a problem. Everyone has used it. And then that's just continued. So straight away for me, I haven't found it a problem that all my classes are using it. Parents are fully aware of it. And then your second question with the homework, have I found homework being handed in? Yeah, completely. I mean, the more you use it, you get another thing to do. AI detectors do not work. I'm in fact doing some research on that at the moment, and I set a challenge for children, and I've said it with sort of 80 children. I'm going into other schools, and it's showing that 12-year-olds, my youngest year group, 12-year-olds who've never used generative AI can beat AI detectors in under 5 minutes. So that drives me mad because they're a huge industry. They're big money. These companies that say, hey, we've caught this, we've got it, and it's 70% likely. Well, I've got all the results that I'm going to be publishing shortly saying, yeah, children can get 100% authentic in under 5 minutes by listing little, well, I won't list them on here, but there's very, very, very simple ways to beat detectors. So detectors don't work. But having said that, if you use it a lot, you can pick it out. I play bingo. With the children, and I make a joke of it because for me, it has to be because it's not the be all and end all. I'm not doing coursework. I'm doing formative work. So I just say, well done. If you've got it past me, what have you achieved in that? So when I see something that's going to waste my time, there are certain words it uses that it throws up, particularly the poorer versions. So we've got words like leverage. Anytime I see leverage, this has got AI in it. I mean, I've got a whole list of words that I have that we now laugh. So I think openly embracing it in the classroom. And if you've taught these children, how they write. I can't pin it down. There's no evidence on that, but I don't have to gladly because I'm not doing the summative exams. But with the homework, just openness about it. You can just pick it up and start reading is what I do in my classes. Say, have you written this, Santi? Are you sure? And you read it out. And you can see by the look on their face, and I say, look, I'm not going to, you've helped your efficiency there. Well done. You've done this homework very quickly. But do you really want to mark it? Are you going to learn anything from me marking this? And most of the time, in fact, I say most, all of the time, every single time I've done that, the child has come back and said, can I do it again? And I said, fine. Because I think that's the kind of nature. You won't learn anything from me doing it. I'm not trying to trick you. If you want to say it's yours and it is, well, I can't prove it isn't. And that's the problem. But I don't really need to. I don't care. You're going to get exposed. If you do it repeatedly on your homework, all you're doing is missing out on the help of me. So well done. Yeah, you've missed the help. I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
To me, this is another aspect of how the human factor can actually be the answer to any of AI questions out there, and how this can become a great correlation, actually, rather than an enemy or anything like a menace or something competitive. And I think you have actually explained it to us very thoroughly.
But do they then go off and do it themselves, or do they try harder to cover up the AI behind it?
I mean, I can't prove that's the point, but I'd like to think, maybe I'm naive, I think they do it themselves, because the point is, I will take it in, I will mark it, I will mark the AI, but what I always make very clear is, but you are going to come up against a test. Will you learn it? So some of the time, I guess, if they're busy, if there's a football match on the weekend, maybe they just cover it up. But most of the time, you know, it's really, if they are doing that, then my homework's not very good. Then that I would take it, if they are going away and using AI and can use AI to make a better piece of work, then my homework hasn't been a good one. It just really isn't exposing them, it's exposing me. Then I'm not setting something meaningful that they can learn from. So it's probably a mixed bag. I'd like to think, but I'm probably that they do genuinely go away and write it. But as you said, they might just go away and tell it to put some spelling mistakes in and go and watch the football. So it is a problem. It is a problem, but I completely agree with George. It's this mix of human and AI together. You can't just think AI is the solution to the problem, and it's never going to replace schools and teachers. I don't believe that at all. I know some people do. I don't believe that. But I do thoroughly believe educators have a duty to try it, and they don't need training on it. You don't need courses. There is no one better. The skill of using generative AI is communication. It is not coding. It is not tech. That is my big push. It is language. I hate prompt engineering. I hate talk of it. I hate the jargon. We don't need it. You communicate. You chat with it. You talk. I encourage, and evidence is out there saying if you use normal language, you get better results. So I teach them, I sit with them in front, and they laugh when I say, whoa, what are you doing? And I type, whoa, what are you doing? And they say, why? And I say, please and thank you, which is a bit uncomfortable for some people, I know. But that gets the best outcome because it's trained on natural language. It's not trained on coding. So the more natural you are with it, the more you tell it off and be cynical. Why do you think it? Justify this. If it tells you something, why? Justify that. The better the output is going to be. So teachers have no excuse. They are the best communicators in the world. If we can communicate with 6-year-olds and 12-year-olds who are bored and as part of a class of 20 and teach complicated concepts, we can definitely communicate with this supercomputer AI thing. We don't need training. Communicating is the skill. It's not computers. So yeah, every teacher I think should get out there and do it.
Jack, thank you very much for this insightful episode. You know, that was another small crash course on AI, on so many other educational issues.
I think we could talk about AI for ages. Yeah.
Have a sequel of the episode as well.
Maybe.
So thank you so much. We wish you all the best. Maybe, you know, summer season is coming to Canary Islands, so maybe you can have some opportunity to chill out there and enjoy holidays or, you know, the landscape of Canary Islands. So until next time, all the best, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.